The month of June, perhaps no other month is as important in the garden in terms of maintenance as the month of June. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's get started on this week's edition of the Plant Doctor. So I put a lot of thought into what I wanted to discuss with you guys in terms of maintenance in the month of June. So my goal here is I want to do a monthly video, like a to-do list, and I literally sat down and I have a couple pages that I want to talk about with you guys. So we're going to walk around the yard here. I'm going to talk about some things that I'm doing in my yard. So I'm in North Alabama. I'm right on the line between 7B and 8A, so just to give you a reference. So if you know what zone you're in, if you're in zone 7 or zone 8, you need to be doing these things as well. Zone 6, you might can wait a little bit longer, but it's probably a good idea to go ahead and be doing these things as well. The first thing I want to talk about is planting. It's not too late to plant. I do not like to plant in July and August. I like to plant in the spring and then again in the fall. But if you have some plants that you want to get into the ground, it's not too late to do so. But I would encourage you to water those plants. Just don't stick them in the ground and not water them for 2 or 3 weeks and think they're going to be okay. If you do plant this time of year, I would encourage you maybe take back some of that vegetative material off the top. That's going to help those roots out a little bit in terms of the amount of nutrients that they're bringing to the plant and what they need to supply to the plant. It's not too late for annuals either. Really, this time of year, you can get some good deals on annuals at the local nursery. So we've passed that spring rush. Things are starting to get hot, and some of these local nurseries, they're looking to start to get rid of some of their summer annuals. They're already thinking about Labor Day. You know, they're placing orders for pansies and snapdragons now to get those on September delivery, and they're really looking to kind of empty some of those shelves a little bit. So if you find a good deal at your local retail garden center on some annuals, don't be afraid to pick them up. It's not too late to plant those either. Weed control. Oh man, this is a big one for June, guys. If you think about it, this is the prime month for weeds. The ground's still relatively wet, at least where I'm at. We've had some good rains. The temperatures, they're very warm. And even in some of my annual beds, I've created the perfect seed bed, as you have. We've amended soil. We're watering these things a couple times a week. So my weed control, what do I do? In areas where I have ornamental material, in particular where the ornamental material is very tight and dense close together, I'm going to hand pick those. If I have areas that are like walkways or pathways, there's not other plant material around it, or the plant material is planted very far apart from each other, I'll get in there with the backpack sprayer and I'll use Roundup, or if it's broadleaves, I may mix up some Trimec and I'll spray those. So get rid of those ASAP. If you have weeds, get them while they're small, because we're in that time of year where they can really just explode on you. Your garden can get away from you this time of year, so stay on top of the weed control. Mulch. It's not too late to mulch. I like to freshen up mulch a little bit in the month of June. Mulch does several things for us, okay? It helps hold in water. We're going to get into July and August, and here in Alabama, those are what I would call our scorcher months. The humidity's through the roof. It's 90-95 degrees every day. It's muggy outside, and we get pop-up showers. We don't get widespread rain unless there's a tropical storm or a hurricane in the Gulf. And so we get little pop-up showers. It may rain at my house, but across the street it doesn't rain at all, literally. And so if you don't get one of these pop-up showers, you may go a week or two without water. Most of the southeastern United States is that way. Most of the eastern United States this time of year is that way. We really don't get any cold fronts bringing in any rain. It's just these afternoon pop-up showers. So that mulch is going to help retain what water you do get. It's not going to evaporate back out into the atmosphere. It's going to help keep your weeds down. That's the number 2 thing. So we've got increased water potentials in the soil, and then we have keeping our weeds down as well. So I mentioned previously going ahead, spraying your weeds or picking your weeds, whatever your preference is. In a way to combat those weeds from coming back is to mulch. And also your mulch is going to help keep your roots cool. So that's the third advantage to that. Your roots aren't going to dry out near as fast compared to if it was just bare ground. Pruning. It's not too late to prune some of our early spring flowering plants, but I would recommend you do it in the next couple weeks. We get into July, especially into August, you start pruning some of that stuff, you're going to lose your flowers for next spring. So what are the plants I'm talking about? I'm talking about azaleas, rhododendrons, forsythia, spirea, any of those plants that bloom early spring. They set their flower buds starting in late summer. So if you haven't pruned, it's not too late. Go ahead and prune those if they need pruning. Cut back your evergreen shrubs. I just pruned my boxwoods the other day. I've got some hollies that I need to prune. I haven't gotten to those yet. You can go ahead and prune those. They're getting a lot of new growth. They've had that initial spring flush. So what I'm looking at is just going back through once I've pruned everything one good time and just kind of shaping things up a little bit. So if you haven't done that, it's not too late to do that. And one more thing on pruning, deadhead your annuals. So we've had this initial flush. You may see the salvia off of my left-hand shoulder here. And that salvia is bloomed. I've got a couple that have kind of done their thing. So what I'll do is I'll go through, I'll pinch off the spent flowers, and that is going to encourage those to do 2 things. They're going to get more bushier, they're going to vegetate out, and then they're going to throw up another flower spike as well. So go ahead and go through and deadhead your annuals. Fertilizers. It's not too late to go ahead and fertilize your trees and shrubs. Don't wait until late summer to fertilize your trees and shrubs. We do not want to encourage an excessive amount of vegetative growth going into fall. We want to encourage our plants to go into dormancy. You don't want a whole lot of new growth coming onto your plants and us entering frost period, because all that's going to do is just kill back that new growth that came out. So if you haven't fertilized, it's a good idea to go ahead and do so on your trees and shrubs. Also, fertilizing your grass. What I like to do, I'll put down like a triple 10 or something like that. I don't like putting down a lot of nitrogen right now, but what I would encourage you to do, if you can find a fertilizer that has some iron in it. So I'm going to put down like a triple 10. I think I've got the bag in the garage. I hadn't looked at it. I think it's a triple 10, but it has 5% iron. What is that going to do? That's going to make your yard the envy of the neighborhood. It's going to get super dark green. You'll have the darkest grass in the neighborhood, but you're not going to have an excessive amount of vegetative growth. So you're not going to have to be out there mowing twice a week. In terms of mowing, I'm pulling the mower deck up a little bit. I'm going to pull it up about a 1/2 inch this week, and I'll pull it up another 1/2 inch in July. I like to scalp the yard early spring, get some sunlight down on the soil, encourage that new vegetative growth to come up. And as we progress through the summer, what I'm going to do is raise that mower deck up a little more and a little more. That's going to help conserve water in the soil layer. The taller that vegetative material is, that is going to help shade the ground from some of that sunlight and keep some of that water in there. Insect control. If your insect problem is not significant, what I like to do is give time for those beneficials to pop up. So the ladybugs will be out here in full force. So if you have a little bit of an aphid problem, That's not the end of the world. Those ladybugs will come in and clean that up for you. But if you have some plants that are looking really bad, or if you have a chronic infestation, you know, you use your preferred method in terms of getting rid of that. There's several different things on the market that'll help you do that. Some things you can do to decrease the insects and diseases is clean up. If you've got a lot of decomposing material, you got a lot of dead limbs, a lot of dead leaves laying around, what you can do is clean some of those up. Now is the time to also cut back your bulbs. So if you had hyacinths, if you've had daffodils, those early spring flowering bulbs, you want to cut the vegetative material off of those about 8 weeks after they finish flowering. So what are we doing with that? We're collecting the sunlight to make sugars. Those are stored in the bulb, and those are the sugars that will be used next year to push out vegetative material as well as that flower that we all like. Now's also the time to divide those out. So if it's been 4, 5, 6 years since you've divided those bulbs, now's a good time to do that. If you go much longer than that without dividing them, what will happen is you get large clumps of vegetative material with very few flowers. So if you'll dig those up, divide them out, that should increase your flowering going into next spring. I would also encourage you to clean up areas where mosquitoes could breed. We're getting into mosquito season, especially where I am. We're getting to those warm, muggy, hot days. I've got a few little areas like the catch basin for my downspouts off the house. I notice there's some water in those. I'm going to adjust those to keep them from holding water, just so that we don't have a mosquito larva in and around the house. So check your bird baths, check any low-lying areas, and make sure that we're cleaning those up as well. If you're into plant breeding like I am, I've got a daylily garden over here. Now's the time to be crossbreeding those. If you do that, you know how to crossbreed them. Make sure that you're marking down the flower names and what you're crossing them with. Take pictures, mark the plants where they're at, and you should be doing good there.